Welcome to the final Bowl Mania video to 2023-24 college football season. That's right, we're asked to the last 17 games before we get the national championship game, the college football playoff. Notice I got quotations because I don't like the current setup. And we should have moved to the 12, but thanks to the ACC, they didn't vote for it. Now they got screwed. That's a whole different thing. This is the final 17 games starting from December 28th to the 1st of January. And this will cover a wide variety of bowl games, featuring most of the power conferences. As of right now, my first week of college bowl mania, I went 7-3. Currently, I have lost already 4 games in week 2. We'll see how things kind of play out in the upcoming bowls. So I'm not going to dwell on too long on that. Let's go ahead and kick things off up there in Boston in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. We'll see the 11-2, 24th ranked American champions SMU Mustangs taking on the 6-6 Boston College Eagles. Boston College is backed into this bowl, losing the last 3 games. And not really close. For SMU, one great run, knocking off Tulane, who was the favorite to be the New York Six representative once again. Ended that pipe dream for the Green Wave. So we're looking at to cap off a very good, successful season. With SMU, they had a fabulous year led by Stone, who had almost 3,200 yards passing and 28 touchdowns. Knighton, 720-yard rusher, 7 touchdowns. So this is a very aerodynamic type of offense who does play some defense when they have to. And other times, it's just their offense is the best defense. Boston College defense-wise, just not really living up to the par. Their offense has been struggling. We have to see how things kind of go. Castellanos, only 2,100 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So the offense right now for Boston College is going to be a huge factor. Right now, the ESPN analytics have SMU for almost 84%, and Vegas has them at -10. I, too, will go with SMU. I think everything is just pointing their direction. This is one heck of a season for the Mustangs. Next, time to head out to the Bronx with the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl at their Yankee Stadium. We'll feature the 6-6 Rutgers Scarlet Knights taking on the 7-5 Miami Hurricanes. These two used to be the same conference back when the Big East used to sponsor football. Remember those time frames? The old BCS era? Both programs were struggling. Miami losing 3 of the last 4 matchups. Rutgers is backed into the matchups, losing the last 4 games. Offensively, Miami has not looked very spectacular. Even the win against Virginia was very, very bad, but Virginia was playing upset football because they really gave to you-know-what. And really depended on which quarterback was running the U at the time frame. Van Dyke has struggled immensely this season. So we'll see what's going to transpire that way. Right now, it's hard really to kind of pinpoint which version is going to show up. As you look at Rutgers offensively, especially against Penn State and Iowa, 6 points between those 2 games. I mean, they gave a little bit of scare to Maryland, confident up 24, but it was just a one-sided affair there. One-sided affair against Ohio State, against Indiana, that they actually won. But right now, the line has the U at 66.5, or ESPN Analytics has the U at 66.5. Vegas have Rutgers by 1.5. While Rutgers is kind of backed into the bowls, I know it's been some time frame. There's still questions about Miami's offense. But I think I'm going to trust more of Miami's defense than I would Rutgers' defense. So I'm going to go with the U for the W. Next time, head out to Orlando at Camping World Stadium for the Pop Tarts Bowl. That's right, Pop Tarts named a bowl. I know if you had the Cheez-It Bowl, now it's the Pop Tarts Bowl. And Cheez-It Bowl was in Arizona, then went to Orlando. And let's know, like I said, too many bowl games. When you have the Pop Tarts Bowl and the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Sorry, just corporate sponsors getting away with a lot of stuff. Anyways, it'll feature the 18th ranked NC State Wolfpack at 9-3, taking on the 25th ranked Kansas State Wildcats at 8-4. They're just some really good teams. I mean, NC State had that great run towards the end of the season, winning a bunch of games, sniffing a possibility at ACC championship game, but losing key games early in the season kind of took them out of the race. K-State struggled most of the way. Had that great game against Texas, but lost out in overtime. Then outgunned Baylor, edged out KU, then lost to the rival Iowa State. So the last two games were, of course, rivalry games for them and kind of split them. So Kansas State is definitely a team you got to watch out for, but which version will Howard be successful for the Wildcats or Armstrong show up for the Wolfpack? You can never know. You never know with those two. Running-wise, I think I'll go more with the Wildcats as Giddens. I think will be more of a factor in this matchup, especially if he plays. These last bowl games, star players, Tennessee will probably not play because there's no incentive for them, risk injury, especially if they have a high draft outlook, like the first, second round type of pick, and they may not play. But for this one, right now, analytics have K-State pretty much at 74.5, and Vegas has them at 2.5. I like K-State in this one. I think it's just the running ability by the Wildcats. Probably be too much for the Wolfpack. But also depends which version of Armstrong shows up. But I like K-State. Then we have to the Valero Alamo Dome out there in San Antone, and the Alamo Dome will feature the 14th ranked Arizona Wildcats at 9-3, taking on the 12th ranked Oklahoma State Sooners at 10-2. Future and leaving member of the Big 12, respectively. Arizona had a wonderful run at the end of the season, playing spoiler to so many teams. The win against Oregon State was huge. Washington State game was huge. Outgunned Colorado, was all over Utah. Dominated UCLA. Blasted their in-state rival Arizona State. I mean, everything you can think of went their way. I tried to pick against them, and they still won. That's how well this team was rolling into the end of the season. And I have no doubt that they would continue to run. But the problem is they're taking on Oklahoma, who had a great win against Texas. However, back-to-back losses really hampered them, especially losing to the Bedlam series, Oklahoma State. Really hampered that aspect, hampered them battling Texas to ensure the two leaving members leave a sour taste in the Big 12. But for this one, I see more RU players opting out in this game. Not saying they don't have enough quality players to back them up, but right now ESPN Analytics has Oklahoma at 75.5%. Vegas has the U of A at -3. I myself think there's going to be too many issues with Oklahoma. And I think once again star players. So I'm also going to go with the Wildcats to edge out Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. Now we're heading out to Jacksonville for the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. We're featured the 22nd ranked Clemson Tigers at 8-4, taking on the 7-5 Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky had some a bright future ahead of them. Unfortunately, injuries did kind of play a factor in their matchup. Clemson had a very, very slow start. Came out towards the end, especially that game against Notre Dame, that really set this motion going forward because they ended up winning the last 4 games of the season. When the season looked to be out of their touch, Kentucky struggled into the year, only winning 2 of the last 5 games. Struggling against South Carolina. They're able to knock off Louisville. Really didn't hamper the ACC's chance again into the postseason because of that. So Alabama should thank Kentucky for that one. So it's Kentucky's defense is really going to play a huge factor in this matchup. This was a huge factor against Louisville. And I think it's going to be a huge factor against Clemson. Clemson offensively has struggled. Look what they did with South Carolina. Struggled immensely against the Gamecocks. Struggled immensely with NC State. They struggled with the Irish too. But I don't know. I think I have a little bit more faith with Clemson, even though in Kentucky, if Davis can be a huge factor in the running attack, it's going to favor the Wildcats. If Leary can be a more effective passer, it's going to favor the Wildcats. But Klubnik is not a slouch either for passing for the Tigers. And they can get those key receivers involved as well. Right now, the analytics have Clemson at 66%. Vegas has Clemson at -4. I almost went with Kentucky. I will take Clemson, but I'm not a huge favor of the points. Just the way Clemson's playing right now, they're playing lights out. But it's going to be a struggle to get around that Kentucky defense. The Kentucky defense is going to be swarming. They're going to look to see which feline comes out on top. But I think the Tigers should edge out the Wildcats. Now it's time I head out to the El Paso, Texas for Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, which will feature the 19th ranked Oregon State Beavers at 8-4, taking on the 16th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 9-3. Both programs had some games that probably they didn't want to get out of the way. Oregon State was playing for had their fate in their hands in the Pac-12 when they're taking on Washington, Oregon in the season, and failed to do that. Their biggest opportunity was against Washington, failed to win. They failed to win against Arizona, and they lost by 3. So Oregon State is a very, very well coached. Ugalele was phenomenal this entire season for the Beavers. Martinez is a huge factor in that rushing attack for the Beavers as well. But the Irish have Estime, it's a huge factor for them in the rushing attack for the Irish. Hartman was phenomenal in the beginning of the season, struggled towards the end a little bit here and there. As you look at the rest of the season, I mean that close loss to Clemson, and they were taking on an imploding USC. No match for Pitt, Wake, or Stanford. So not really clear cut obstacles in a way to get those 9 wins. And Notre Dame has an issue sometimes with bowl games. Right now, analytics have the Irish by 66. ESPN favors them by 6. The Irish don't play bowl games very well. This seems to be their streak lately. And I'm an Irish fan, and I really want to go with the Irish. I mean, I'm taking the Beavers right now. If Martinez and Ugalele are playing, the Beavers should dominate this game because the Irish have a hard time against the run. Very hard time. You look at the game against Duke. Look at the game against Louisville. The run killed them. Clemson, the run was killing them. Or if Oregon State runs effectively, especially if Martinez plays, it's going to be Beavers. I wish I had a little more faith in the Irish in this one because every time I do kind of go against them, they always prove me wrong. So maybe I'm looking for a little reverse psychology and take the L. Beavers and Sun Bowl. Then we go head over to the AutoZone Liberty Bowl out there in Memphis, Tennessee. In Simons Bank Liberty Stadium. We have 9-3 Memphis Tigers being the road team, taking on the 7-5 Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State, and both these teams had a decent season, always fell short here and there. As you looked at Memphis, won 4 of the last 5 games. Well, Iowa State won 3 of the last 5 games. They kept winning, losing. For Memphis, their biggest disappointment was against SMU when they lost by 4. So they had their fate in their hands right there. They could have knocked off Memphis, put themselves in position, failed to do so. Their defense costs up a lot of points. That's one of their major issues with this team is the defense costs up so much that the offense has to work overtime. Iowa State, like I said, win, lose. I mean, the game against Kansas, very close, lost by 7. Game against Texas, they lost by 10. Dominated BYU, dominated Baylor, outgunned K-State, won that by 7. So Iowa State has these games where they can do that, but they also have games where they kind of go, where's the offense? And defense most of the time is like, what defense? Until they play like Baylor and BYU and they show up. So which version of Iowa State are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that beat up BYU? Or we get the one that struggled through the scoring thing against Texas? And Memphis, are they going to be outgun their Iowa State? Just remember, Beck only has 8 interceptions. Right now, ESPN Analytics has Iowa State at 62.5. Vegas has Iowa State by 10. This one, I'm bucking the trend. Kind of going towards Morgan Hennigan, who's a 3,500-yard passer, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Watts is a 1,000-yard rusher with 14 touchdowns. Taylor, a great focal point for the receiving core, almost 1,000 yards receiving. Everything points towards Iowa State because it's the bigger program. We're here to talk about the Liberty Bowl. Memphis is at home. There's a road team taking the Tigers in an upset. Now we have to the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic out there in Jerry's World at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. We have the 9th-ranked Missouri Tigers at 10-2 taking on the 7th-ranked 11-1 Ohio State Buckeyes. This should be an interesting matchup. Mizzou had a wonderful season, played well against very, very tough opponents, especially the game against Georgia. They gave Georgia all they could handle, fell short towards the end, dominated Tennessee, outlasted Florida, destroyed Arkansas, destroyed South Carolina. Then you look at Ohio State, they had Michigan on the ropes and could not close them out. Michigan won in that game. And you look at most of the games there, they did towards the end of the season, they really have much to really hamper them. I mean, they had that great win against Notre Dame in the beginning of the season, the win against Penn State. You know, it depends on how many Buckeyes sit out on this one, because I think there's going to be quite a few. But I think with Ohio State, I think they have the mentality next man up anyway, so the next player is going to be moving up. And with Schrader, I think Schrader's going to be out of this game. You know, he's almost a 1,500-yard rusher. I think he's going to be looking at very high draft stock. For him, Cook should be very good, over 3,000-yard passer. Should be playing this game. McCourt probably should be playing this game as well. So it should be a very good quarterback matchup between these two. Right now, ESPN Analytics has Ohio State at 75.5. Vegas likes them by 1.5. I, too, will go with the Ohio State. I think it's going to be a very close fought battle. But once again, it all depends on which star players kind of sit out. But I like the Buckeyes. And time to head out to Hotlanta in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl out there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You get the 11th ranked Ole Miss Rebels at 10-2, taking on the 10th ranked Penn State Nittany Lions at 10-2. And these two programs had two key games in their schedule and failed to overcome them. I mean, Ole Miss just got blasted by Georgia. They got blasted by Alabama. But at least Penn State made theirs a little close between Ohio State and Michigan. So you have to look at that aspect. And for Ole Miss and Penn State, they had Georgia and Michigan those last 5 games, swamped by other games that really matter much. In the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss distro against Mississippi State. And then they had the outgun A&M back on the 4th of November. And you look at the last time Penn State really had a tough game was against Indiana, of all teams, back on October 28th. So everything looks towards Penn State. See which ones kind of take effect. I think the offensive players are going to be more on the Ole Miss side. I think the defense is going to show up. Like I said, they really have played anyone tough since Michigan back on November 11th. Same time frame, Ole Miss also lost their matchup against Georgia. Right now, ESPN Analytics has the Nittany Lions at 72%, and Vegas likes them at 3.5. I, too, will go with Penn State because they tend to do better against high-skilled teams than Ole Miss has, especially if you look at the two teams that end up going to the SEC championship game. Struggling against them, but he ended up beating, A&M and LSU. But we'll see, see how that one plays out. But I think Penn State could squeak this one out. Now time to deal with the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl out there in Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Features 6-6 Auburn Tigers taking on 7-5 Maryland Terrapins. And it all depends which version of Auburn shows up. Is it the one that almost knocked off Alabama but couldn't contain them any longer and has a fourth and forever Hail Mary that won it for the Tide? Or is the same Auburn team that got trounced by New Mexico State at home 31-10? They were double-digit favorites and ended up losing by 21 points. And look at Maryland. They've struggled here and there. I mean, which version of Maryland's going to show up? Is the one that, outpaced Rutgers at the end of the game, or the one that edged out Nebraska? Or is the one that lost to Northwestern? Or the one that, lost closely to Michigan? I mean, there's so many different versions of these guys. It's which one is going to show up and make their mark. Is Tagovailoa going to play for the Terps? Over 300 yards, 3,000 yard passer. Excuse me. Is Hemby going to be there for the running attack for the Terps? Will Hunter show up for the Tigers' running attack? Will Thorne be the quarterback? There's just so many issues. Which version is going to appear? Right now, Auburn is favored by ESPN Analytics by 52%, and Vegas likes him at 7. Take Maryland. There's too many question marks for me about Auburn, especially those last 2 games. Their defense couldn't hold on to the lead, and the offense couldn't show up one week. 2 other games they should have won, they didn't win, and then they beat Mississippi State. So it's a team that I have question marks about. Maryland also has question marks. It's gonna be a rough one. But like I said, I think I'm going with Maryland. Now, time head out to the Capital One Orange Bowl out there in the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. Feature the 6th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs at 12-1, and the 5th-ranked undefeated Florida State Seminoles. Unfortunately, with this one, there's something like 40+ plus players that are not playing in this game from both squads. This is not going to be a very touted game. This was a very touted game, was originally scheduled because Georgia is definitely a lot better than Florida State. Georgia lost at the wrong time of the season in the SEC championship game. Florida State didn't lose. They just lost their starting quarterback, and the committee's like, well, since they're running with a third-string quarterback, we decided that they're not a viable candidate anymore. That's a BS flag thrower right there if I ever heard one. They just couldn't live without the SEC and in the college football playoff because they're going to have to have Texas in because Texas is better than Alabama because they beat them. They say play the games. They played the games. They won the games, but yet it wasn't good enough. I know all the SEC fans are going to scream, no, they got it right. Texas and Alabama are definitely better. Look, Georgia's favored. Yeah, because no one in Florida State cares. Florida State would have been favored, or Georgia would have been favored if Georgia and Florida State was going to face off in the playoffs anyways. Georgia's a better team. I'm not going to argue that aspect at all. I think they're still a better team in this game, no matter how many players they lose. Beck probably will end up playing because he's saying he's coming back. He's running back. He's looking to win the SEC next year, I think. So with that being said, I think it's going to be in Georgia's best interest for that. Can the defense kind of hold back Florida State? I think they should. The Florida State's defense will be a factor in this game, really. But also, once again, depends on which players that they lose. Depends on how it's going to really affect the outcome in this game. Right now, analytics have Georgia at 61%. Vegas has Georgia at 17.5. They are expecting a Bulldogs blowout. I'm not. I do think Georgia will win by double digits. I think it might be close to maybe 13 at most. But I think it'll be a lot closer than what a lot of people kind of think. But it still will be a Georgia victory. And then people see, Florida State wasn't a better team. But if Florida State puts up a fight against Georgia, and then they'll make all the other opponents just sick. For me, I hate the fact that Florida State winning their conference, ACC, a power conference, gets left out because they want SEC team in the playoff. That's just my opinion. You're not going to change it. But in this matchup, the Orange Bowl, Georgia. Then we have to Tucson, Arizona. The Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, which featured the 11-2 Toledo Rockets taking on the 8-4 Wyoming Cowboys. That was an interesting matchup. Toledo was poised to win the MAC and lost a rematch to the Miami. So they won pretty much all their games beyond that point. The only loss they suffered previously was the opening week against the Illini, which they should have won. Then you look at the Cowboys. They had their opportunities to put themselves into position. Couldn't get past Boise State, the Air Force. That really hampered their ability to make it in the Mountain West Championship game. All the other opponents they faced off, they kind of handled quite well. In this one, can Finn outdo Peasley? But Wyoming's definitely one of these teams I am not going to overlook. Toledo's one of these teams you're not going to overlook either. Right now, analytics favors Toledo by 52, almost 53, but Vegas favors Wyoming at 3.5. So which one you kind of lean towards? This should be a really good matchup between these two. I myself will go with the Rockets. I think with Boone being a huge factor in that backfield, should make the Cowboys think twice. Air Force that was able very successfully able to run against them. So we'll see how that is, and if Finn could find some balance in the offense, and especially in the aerial attack. I mean, UNLV put up 34 on them, Boise 32, so you can put up some top numbers like that. This should be a long day for the Cowboys. I doubt it's going to be like that, though. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, but I like the Rockets in this one. Now to Tampa, Florida, at their Raymond James Stadium for the ReliaQuest Bowl between the 7-5 Wisconsin Badgers and the 9-3 13th ranked LSU Tigers. For this one, the main thing is Daniels going to play? The Heisman winner, will he play in this game? My money will be no. He has nothing else to go for. He's the Heisman winner. That's going to be what's going to hang on. Especially goes in the draft with him being that dual threat action. I mean, if he doesn't play, this game's going to be a totally different aspect. And this is how I'm approaching this. I'm approaching this as Daniels is not playing. And, look at some of the games they played towards the end. No one difficult, really. I mean, A&M, difficult, being 42-30, outgunned them. Lost to Alabama 42-28, but they played Georgia State, Florida, Army. Wisconsin didn't do much better in their aspect. Struggled to beat Nebraska, beat Minnesota. But they had that string of losses between losing to Indiana. It's always a dark mark, I think. So, which version of the Badgers are going to show up? And if Daniels doesn't play, how much does this change LSU's offense? Chip Kelly's another one, Brian Kelly. So that one has a hard time winning in the bowls, especially as being a long-time Notre Dame head coach. Didn't have much success in the bowl games either. But right now, ESPN Analytics has LSU by almost 82%, and Vegas like LSU by 10. Like I said, I think they both have Daniels is going to play. If Daniels plays, yes. I'm in the boat to think Daniels is not going to play. I'm thinking Wisconsin. And that's where I'm going to go. Now we head to the Verbo Fiesta Bowl out there in Glendale, Arizona at State Farm Stadium. You have the undefeated 23rd ranked Liberty Flames taking on the 11-2 8th ranked Oregon Ducks. And even though Liberty had a great run, being Conference USA champions, undefeated, toppled up the American for the New Year's Six bowl bid to be the Group of 5 representative, and that's going to be the highlight of their season. Right now, Analytics heavily favored Oregon at 90%. Vegas has them by 17. Does Bo Nix play? That's a huge question mark. I doubt he will either. I think he's going to look for brighter pastures. So everything's going to fall back on Salter and Cooley for the Flames and see if they can really go after this Oregon defense. They will have some success. I do think that this matchup is going to be more like Oregon USC, where Oregon beat them 36-27. So I think Liberty will make it interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Liberty had a first quarter lead. As Oregon go try to figure out the schemes to corral Liberty. But I do think the Ducks will end up winning this game. I think it's definitely going to be closer than that 17, though. So take Liberty for the points. Oregon for the win. Now back to Orlando for the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, with feature 17th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes at 10-3, taking on 21st ranked Tennessee Volunteers at 8-4. This should be interesting. Can Iowa's defense stop Tennessee's offense? Again, Tennessee's defense stops Iowa's offense. The latter question is a yes. Iowa's offense doesn't, knock you over at all. It's the defense you got to watch out for. That defense, the last 5 games, the most they gave up was 26. That was to Michigan in the Big Ten Championship. defensive wise, those few games, that was like I said, that was the only time frame to cough up that 20 plus points, and they were just dominant. But look who they took on: Nebraska, Illinois, Rutgers, Northwestern. They just don't win. Personally, Northwestern 10-7, Nebraska 13-10, Illinois 15-13. I mean, it's not games that you expect a lot out of. But you look what Tennessee did against Missouri and Georgia, where they can only go 17 points in 2 games, and they end up losing on average. The average they allow 37 points between those two. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. But in other games, you see they outgunned Kentucky, doubled up Vanderbilt, dominated UConn. So they both of them have when Tennessee dominates, they dominate. Can Milton continue that aspect and do that? Can Wright continue to be the right format if he's also playing? There's a lot of question marks of who's going to play right now. ESPN Analytics have Tennessee at 70%, and Vegas likes them at 7.5. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than 7.5 because of Iowa. They're forsaking Iowa's offense, or excuse me, Iowa's defense. So Iowa's defense will keep this game close, but it's just that Tennessee defense is going to stifle Iowa. I'll be shocked if Iowa gets 10 points. But definitely the Volunteers and the Citrus. Now it's time to head into the college football playoff semifinal action. We'll start off in Pasadena in the Rose Bowl, presented by Prudential. Will feature the SEC champion, 4th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, take on the Big Ten champion, undefeated Michigan Wolverines. In a pivotal matchup, can Michigan now take the next step? Last year, they made it to the playoff and got bounced by TCU. Can they now take it out Alabama? That is going to be a hard thing to do. Because you look at Alabama's offense, they have rattled off some points. The lowest they scored was 27. And that was against Georgia and Alabama. Milroy has really hit his stride right now with that offense. So he's going to be a very, very difficult out to get through. Michigan, offensively, the lowest they had was 26, and that was against a very stout Iowa offense. I'm expecting about the same amount of points against Alabama, mind you. So J.J. McCarthy is definitely going to have his hands full with that Tide front and that secondary. So it's going to really rely on Corum to really set the tone. And also Cam McClennan for the Tide do the same thing. You look defensively, the most that Michigan's caught the last 5 games is 24 points. So we'll see which defense comes out on top, or which offense can prevail. ESPN Analytics, Michigan, 55.6. Vegas, Michigan, -2. This is going to be a very, very tight matchup. And I have a feeling I'm going to get these games wrong, to tell you the truth, because it could go either direction. I really think it really could. I think Harbaugh is trying to go out on blaze of glory now in Michigan. I'm taking the Wolverines to knock off the Tide. For me, the Tide shouldn't be in this position. I would say Florida State should be here, if not Texas. But I think it's going to be very hard fought battle between these two. That's it. I am uneasy with this pick. To go against Saban and the Tide is it's almost suicide. But I don't know. I think it's just. I think Michigan might sneak this one out. Now time to the Big Easy in New Orleans for the Caesars at the Caesars Superdome for the All-State Sugar Bowl in the final semifinal college football playoff matchup will feature number 3 Texas Longhorns, the Big 12 champion, taking on the Pac-12 champion, undefeated Washington Huskies. This is going to be a fun matchup between these two. Which quarterback is going to be more dominant? Is it going to be Ewers or is it going to be Penix Jr.? Which running attack is going to be more efficient? Is it going to be Brooks or Johnson? Which defense is going to show up which to stifle? For Texas, their biggest letdown was against Kansas State when they caught up 30 points. Still ended up winning that game. But since then, the closest they got was 26 by TCU. So Texas has had some close matchups, with K-State and TCU being the top, the two coming to mind. Of course, they had that loss in their Red River against OU. For Washington, they had to outgun USC, had to outgun Utah, had to edge out Oregon State, Washington State. Once again, they had to beat Oregon, which I picked Oregon to win the rematch. So Washington knows how to play close-fought battles. Penix Jr. has been tested. I liked him better for the Heisman because of that. Everyone likes the flashy players. I get that. I see why Daniels won. He has all the stats. Penix was just a cool, calm, collected individual. Just won. Over 4,200 yards passing, 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Right now, ESPN Analytics has Texas at 69%. Vegas has Texas at 4.5%. They love themselves some Longhorns. I'm taking the future Big Ten member Washington Huskies to edge out Texas. I don't know. That's just one of these matchups that I think Washington is able to handle. Now, they're going to be living dangerously. Don't get me wrong. Texas is a quality team, definitely deserving the spot in the playoff. But I think this is going to be a very hard-fought battle. Both teams have had those games, but Washington is undefeated for a reason. And until they lose, I'm going to stick with them until the championship game. But I'm taking the Huskies to win against the Longhorns. There you go. Those are my 17 games. Long-winded. Of course, when time frame recording this video is late Tuesday night. So the lines could change. The number of players sitting out can change. Daniels could be playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl, which would totally affect that game. I am taking the L for that. But hey, let me know down below what you think of my picks. I know the college football playoff, I can see Bama and Texas both winning. I can see Michigan, Texas. I see Alabama, Washington. I mean, yeah, this is going to be difficult to choose in this matchup. Yeah, if Florida State would have been in there, I don't think Florida State would have had a shot to win any game, but they could definitely make it interesting if they took on Michigan or Washington because of that defense. Georgia's going to be the same thing. I think if Georgia was in this matchup, I think Georgia would have won. What could have happened if they had the 12? Like, no scenarios are tempting as well. We'll get to see that come into action next season. So, let me know down below what you think of these games. Which game you looking forward to this last week of college football outside of the playoffs. Sun Bowl, I'm going to try to probably watch this because it's Notre Dame. Going to be root for them, but not holding my breath. If you're still here in the end, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. It really helps get this video out to the ether. It really helps everyone kind of see the ramblings of this old man just talking nonsense about football. You also subscribe because you have absolutely nothing to do so. All you thing to do is hit that subscribe button, click that bell icon and turn on notifications to let you know next time I post any more content on my channel. And I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.